Modern Americans hold 1776 as a great year for American history, and don't tell anybody when they were living in that time that it was a great year, because it really wasn't when it comes to the American Revolution. We have already seen New York fall to the British, and in fact, the Continental Congress has to flee Philadelphia to Baltimore, and the Brits easily take over New York City, and the Continental Army is experiencing massive desertions. To give you an idea, in September it had 27,000 men. By December, only 6,000 remained. The majority of those had enlistments that were going to be basically expired, and there was no guarantee that they would be renewed. So basically, Washington has a crisis on his hand. In fact, it gets even worse. For example, his second in command, Charles Lee, is going to be captured by the British, and New Jersey and Rhode Island quickly fall to the British. So Washington really needs to pick a rabbit out of his hat. He needs to do something magical in order to turn these things around. And we certainly get at least the start of the turning around in December in January 1776 and in January 1777. The campaigns of these years, basically the battles of Trenton and Princeton, are going to collectively save the morale of the Revolution. So let's talk about it a little bit. On December 25th, 1776, Washington is going to pull a rabbit out of his hat. He's going to cross over the frozen Delaware River and attack the Hessians that are in Trenton, New Jersey. Hessians are German mercenaries. Anyway, he's going to attack these mercenaries the day after Christmas. And so the traditional story is that these Hessian mercenaries are celebrating Christmas. They're drunk because Germans love to celebrate Christmas. And the next morning, they're all hungover and Washington attacks, and there's going to be just mayhem, and they're taken by surprise. That's the traditional story. What we're finding, however, is that they weren't necessarily drunk. They were just taken by surprise. So Washington shows up and surprises the Hessians, and they only lose 4. 2 of 3 of which are from the cold. In reaction, the British are actually going to send down one of their best generals. His name was Lord Cornwallis, to capture Washington. He's going to march from Princeton down to Trenton. Well, Washington's going to go in the opposite direction. He's going to march from Trenton to Princeton. And while Cornwallis is searching for Washington, he attacks. Washington is going to attack and take the city of Princeton. These dual victories are going to boost the American morale and help save the American cause. It does little towards the recruitment of the problems of the Continental Army, because after all, who's going to join an organization that continually loses? But nonetheless, the American Revolution is going to be saved because the morale crisis is going to start being turned around. On top of that, we're going to have some major British mistakes. Number one, the British failed to destroy Washington's army. Washington understood that as long as he was alive, as long as his army was alive, the cause was alive. And that Howe's reluctance to destroy it is what's going to be a major downfall in this early period of the war. A second problem is going to be that they abandoned loyalists. Loyalists that are potentially going to be used to fight against the rebellion. The British largely ignore them. And so the Howes, they encourage them to come forward, but later they just abandon them to the rebels. And finally, we have war crimes. Hessians are mercenaries, and they are going to basically fight for pay. And one of the ways that you pay off your mercenaries, you let them loot. And so the Hessians are going to loot and rape women across the state of New Jersey. And this is a major failure at basically a hearts and minds campaign. And remember, whenever you're fighting against a rebellion, you need to win the hearts and minds of the populace, much less the opposing army.